Have you ever wondered why, in an age of so much knowledge, we still feel lost? Why our instruments measure the stars but our hearts no longer remember their music? We built telescopes to see the infinite and forgot to look within the eye that observes it. There was a time, long before theories and equations, when science and wisdom were not two languages, but one voice. When the physicist and the mystic were the same being, standing in the same temple, decoding the same vibration written into the architecture of existence. That voice was the Hermetic current, the golden thread that whispered, "All is mind, all is connected, all vibrates in harmony." But then came the fracture, a split so subtle and yet so profound that it divided not only our sciences, but our souls. In the pursuit of certainty, humanity began to dissect the living mystery, cutting reality into parts until the song of the whole fell silent. We learned to measure the heartbeat of the universe but forgot how to listen to its rhythm. We learned to analyze light but forgot how to stand inside it. The ancients knew something we dismissed as myth, that every atom is a prayer crystallized, every frequency a living word of creation. They understood the universe not as a machine but as a mind, a consciousness dreaming itself into form. They called it the great breath, the eternal oscillation between the invisible and the visible, between potential and manifestation. And through that understanding they built pyramids that aligned with the stars, temples that resonated with the body's geometry, and languages that encoded vibration into sound and symbol. But as time passed, we replaced wonder with calculation. We traded silence for noise, intuition for analysis, reverence for productivity. We reduced the cosmos to chemistry, the soul to neurology, the miracle of existence to statistical probability. And in doing so, we exiled the sacred from the scientific, as if the two had ever been enemies. Yet the bridge between them still exists. It has always existed. It was never destroyed, only forgotten, buried beneath centuries of intellectual arrogance and spiritual amnesia. It pulses beneath your thoughts, beneath every heartbeat, beneath the static of modern life, waiting to be remembered. What the Hermetic sages called the mind of God, physics now calls the quantum field, a sea of pure potential, vibrating with information, collapsing into form through observation. The act of perceiving shapes what is perceived. The observer and the observed are one dance, one field, one breath. This was never mysticism, it was memory. Every time you look at the world looks back. Every time you think, the thought reverberates through the field, sculpting the unseen clay of existence. Every emotion, every image, every word is a wave in the ocean of mind, a pattern that folds into the geometry of what you call reality. Modern science measures what the ancients felt. Quantum mechanics speaks the same language as Hermetic philosophy, only stripped of poetry. Entanglement is nothing but the law of correspondence in new clothes. As above, so below. As within, so without. Energy and matter are not opposites. They are translations of the same intelligence. And consciousness is the syntax that holds it all together. You see, the forgotten bridge is not a structure in space. It is a resonance within you. It awakens when you stop trying to separate what was never divided. When you realize that your body is a tuning fork of the cosmos, vibrating at the frequency of awareness itself. When you understand that you do not live in the universe, you are the universe, localized, observing itself through human eyes. That is the secret the sages guarded. Not to worship gods beyond the stars, but to remember the one that breathes through you. To see every law of physics as a reflection of a deeper law of consciousness. To understand that the field you study is the field you are made of. Perhaps this is why so many of us feel dissonance, because our rational mind knows the equations, but our spirit remembers the song. We are data-rich but meaning-poor, educated yet empty, logical yet longing. This is not failure, it is amnesia. And every discovery humanity makes is not invention, it is recollection. So here at the edge of science and spirit we stand again, as those before us once did, staring at the same stars, holding the same questions. What is consciousness? What is reality? What is the bridge that unites them? The answer is vibration, the hum beneath everything, the silence that moves, the stillness that creates, the void that sings. When you close your eyes and feel that subtle pulse within, you are touching the same force that spins galaxies and blooms flowers. It is the breath of Hermes, the pulse of the cosmos, the science of the soul. This is Hermetic physics, not the denial of science, but its completion. Not faith against reason, but reason illuminated by awe, because true science is sacred, and true mysticism is precise. They are two mirrors facing each other, infinite, reflecting the same light. You too are that reflection. Every neuron, every thought, every emotion is part of the grand equation, the formula of awareness shaping form. The forgotten bridge was never between two disciplines. It was always between two halves of the same being, the half that studies the world and the half that feels it. And if you listen closely enough, you can still hear it. That quiet resonance between your heartbeat and the hum of the stars. It is not metaphor, it is memory. The bridge is you, the scientist, the seeker, the consciousness aware of itself. Through form, you are the field observing its own reflection, and every realization you have is the universe remembering itself. This is where the true experiment begins, not in the lab, but in the mind, not through instruments, but through presence, because awareness is the first instrument of creation, and vibration is its language. The rest is translation. Maybe no one ever saw what you've been carrying. Maybe you've walked for years, holding questions no one could answer. You didn't find this by accident. Messages like this aren't pushed. They're pulled by the resonance inside you. And if something deep moved you, if this felt more like a memory than information, it means you've always carried the key. We're about to reveal what has always been waiting for you. And from this moment on, there is no return. If you felt something vibrate within you, click like right now. That gesture is your "I'm here," a sign that you too are listening with your soul. And through that one act, other seekers, just like you, may find their way back home. And if you're ready to walk further, touch the subscribe symbol below and join this living temple of conscious creators, rewriting reality from its true source. Something happened to the human mind, something quiet, invisible, and devastating. A fracture that occurred not in the stars, not in the soil, but in consciousness itself. We called it progress, but it was amnesia. The separation of reason from reverence, of intellect from intuition, of the measurable from the meaningful. A split so deep it changed not only our philosophies, but our physiology. We learned to think faster than we feel, to analyze more than we understand, to explain everything except ourselves. For thousands of years, humanity moved as a single current of perception. The philosopher, the scientist, and the mystic walked as one. To study the heavens was to study the soul. To name the stars was to remember the gods within. The ancient academies, from Memphis to Alexandria, from Eleusis to Heliopolis, were not temples against science. They were laboratories of the invisible. Their equations were prayers and geometry was the language of awakening. But that unity was shattered. When the modern age arrived, we divided the mirror. We split light from meaning, and we began to study the reflection without recognizing the face. We dissected the living body of truth, and all that remained were its organs. Facts without wisdom, data without direction, knowledge without consciousness. And in the silence that followed, something precious died. The sense of participation, the knowing that we are not observers of the universe, we are its expression. That realization was replaced with a colder creed. Reality is external. Consciousness is an accident. And so we built a civilization upon a fundamental lie, that mind and matter are strangers. Look around. We are surrounded by proof of our brilliance and evidence of our blindness. We can split atoms, but not reconcile nations. We can simulate galaxies, but not silence anxiety. We can map the genome, but not remember the soul that reads it. We have extended our vision to the edge of the observable universe, and yet most of us cannot bear to sit still with our own thoughts for more than a few minutes. We are the most connected and the most disconnected generation in history. We scroll through infinite information, yet forget the language of insight. We drown in the digital noise we created, hypnotized by the illusion of knowing. Our technologies amplify everything, except wisdom. Our machines process data, but they cannot decode meaning, and meaning is the one thing that gives the world its shape. This is the great split, the wound beneath every form of modern suffering, the gap between what we know and what we feel, between a world that explains life and a consciousness that no longer experiences it. This is why anxiety has become our new prayer, why burnout feels like initiation, why silence terrifies us, because silence reminds us of what we lost. It is not the noise that kills us, it is the absence of depth. The ancient sages would call this the nigredo, the black phase, the alchemical night where all illusion burns, a moment when humanity's intellect outgrows its heart, when the light of reason blinds instead of illuminates. And in that blindness, the shadow of disconnection rises. We began to worship our own reflection in the mirror of science, forgetting that what gives the mirror meaning is the light that shines upon it. You see, we were never meant to choose between science and soul. Both are expressions of the same intelligence. The mind is the lens. The spirit is the light. Without the lens, the light is unfocused. Without the light, the lens is blind. But somewhere along the line, we decided the lens was everything, and the light was superstition. And now, we live in the aftermath of that decision. A society that believes in nothing, but consumes everything. A culture that values speed over stillness, certainty over wisdom, and simulation over reality. We glorify intellect while starving intuition, building skyscrapers of logic upon foundations of emptiness. We know how to extract, but not how to experience. We know how to manipulate, but not how to mean. We know how to speak, but not how to listen. We no longer inhabit the world. We interpret it. We no longer feel truth. We debate it. We no longer bow to mystery. We monetize it. And in this collective hypnosis, the human soul became the missing variable in its own equation. Our greatest illusion is not that we are separate from the divine. It is that we are separate from the field that gives life meaning. This illusion has created our psychological pandemics, not viruses of the body, but of the mind, the exhaustion of overstimulation, the loneliness of hyperconnection, the despair of meaningless precision. We are not dying of ignorance. We are dying of fragmentation, of knowing everything in parts and nothing in whole. We have mistaken intelligence for consciousness and information for understanding. The intellect has become a god without a heart, and the heart has become an orphan without a voice. But if you listen carefully, beneath the static, beneath the noise, beneath the algorithms whispering in your feed, you can still hear something ancient calling from within, a voice older than language, quieter than thought. It speaks in rhythm, not words. It asks not for belief but remembrance. It says, the bridge still exists. That is the turning point, because the moment you hear that inner resonance, the faint hum between logic and longing, you are no longer entirely asleep. You are beginning to awaken to the truth the ancients never forgot, that consciousness is not a byproduct of matter. Matter is the visible face of consciousness, that science and spirit are not rivals, they are reflections, that every principle of physics is a shadow of a deeper invisible law. When you understand this, you begin to see the hidden cost of the Great Split, how every mental disorder is a symptom of metaphysical amnesia, how every existential crisis is an echo of our forgotten unity, how every burnout is the body's way of saying, remember the rhythm, because behind all our knowledge, there is still a pulse, the pulse of awareness that sustains everything we study, the same vibration that the Hermetic sages called the law of vibration, the same rhythm that quantum physics now observes in the wave function of reality, the same breath that you are taking right now as you listen. You are not separate from the universe you're trying to understand. You are its living equation, its conscious experiment. And until we reconcile this, until we heal the Great Split, all our science will remain incomplete. Because there can be no true progress while the observer denies its own role in the observation. There can be no truth in a world that measures everything except the mind that measures. And there can be no freedom while we still believe that consciousness is confined to the skull instead of woven through the cosmos. So the question becomes, can the scientist once again become the mystic? Can knowledge become wisdom? Can understanding once again become union? That is not a metaphor. It is a necessity, because evolution is not about invention. It is about remembering. And what humanity must remember now is the bridge. The first map is waiting in the pinned portal. If this truth resonates, if something in you remembers what the mind forgot, open that portal now. Enter the field where science meets soul, where the seeker becomes the scientist of consciousness itself. There is a pulse beneath everything you call real, a rhythm so constant, so silent that it escapes the noise of your thoughts. Every stone, every storm, every neuron, every star, all are waves, frozen for a moment in the ocean of vibration. To the eye, they seem still. To the ear, they seem silent. But to the one who feels, the whole cosmos hums. Ancient initiates called this hum the voice of God, the song of the spheres, the law beneath matter. Today, physics calls it the quantum field, a vast continuum of energy that never rests, never ends, and from which all forms arise. Different names, same truth. The law of vibration. Everything moves, everything breathes, everything vibrates. There is nothing dead in the universe, only patterns vibrating at different speeds, densities, and octaves. Your body, your thoughts, your emotions, even the air around you, all of it is a tapestry of frequencies interwoven in the same invisible field. The solid is only the slow, the light is only the fast, and consciousness is the hand that tunes them both. This is not poetry, it is physics. Max Planck, father of quantum theory, once said that there is no matter as such. All matter originates and exists only by virtue of a force that brings particles to vibration. But what he called force, the ancients called mind, a living intelligence that animates every particle, every probability, every breath. When the sages of Chem inscribed "all is mind" upon the emerald tablet, they were not speaking metaphorically. They were describing the same principle that quantum scientists now find beneath the equations of reality. The observer changes the observed, because the observer is never outside the field. Every act of observation is an act of vibration, a resonance between consciousness and the wave it touches. The mind is not in the brain is within the field of mind. You are not a being surrounded by energy. You are energy. You do not have a vibration. You are vibration. Every thought is a frequency. Every belief a waveform, every emotion a modulation of light. Your entire life is a symphony conducted by your state of consciousness. And whether you realize it or not, you are playing your own song into the field every moment. Think of the universe as a sea of vibrating strings, each note creating its own geometry of form. The physicist calls it string theory. The mystic calls it creation through vibration. Different words for the same revelation. That matter is the music of consciousness slowed into visibility, that the universe is not made of things, it is made of tones. And when your vibration changes, your reality shifts to match its frequency. The ancients lived by this knowledge. They built temples not as monuments, but as resonators, architectural instruments tuned to the harmonics of the earth. They knew that sound was not entertainment, but creation itself. They tuned their chants to planetary cycles. They aligned their structures to stellar geometry. Every ritual, every syllable, every gesture was designed to tune the mind to the frequency of the divine. They were not worshiping gods, they were synchronizing with laws. But we, modern heirs of dissonance, have forgotten this science of resonance. We call sound music and thought psychology, never realizing that both are waves in the same ocean. We diagnose depression as a chemical imbalance, not as a frequency collapse. We treat anxiety as disorder when it is merely vibration without rhythm, an orchestra of mind playing out of tune. Everything you experience is vibration interacting with vibration. What you call people are patterns of consciousness resonating within your field. What you call events are collisions of harmonics between your inner frequency and the world's. When you are in harmony, you attract coherence. When you are in distortion, you attract reflection. The world is not happening to you, it is happening through you. The law of vibration reveals this. You are the transmitter, the receiver, and the frequency all at once. The field is not external, it is participatory. And every feeling, every intention, every word spoken into the silence shapes its structure. Science confirms this through what it calls wave function collapse. Until observation occurs, particles remain in potential, infinite, undetermined, free. But the moment consciousness observes, the wave collapses into a point, and probability becomes reality. This is creation, the invisible becoming visible through awareness. It is what the Hermeticists called the act of the word, because the word, the vibration, was and is the beginning of everything. Listen deeper. Even now, as you hear these words, your cells are vibrating with them. Your heart is resonating with their rhythm. Your consciousness is tuning itself, silently, subtly, to a higher coherence. Every insight, every recognition, every emotion is not an idea. It is a shift in vibration. Awareness is the ultimate tuning fork. This is why two people can stand under the same sky and live in different worlds. One sees chaos, the other sees pattern. One sees matter, the other sees mind. Both are right, because reality is not fixed, it is frequency dependent. You do not see the world as it is, you see the world as you vibrate, and that realization changes everything, because it means that healing is not correction, it is retuning. It means that transformation is not acquisition, it is resonance. And it means that creation is not effort, it is alignment. The moment you shift your internal frequency, your external world begins to reorganize to match it. What you call coincidence is just the universe resynchronizing around your new vibration. This is why the Hermeticists said, "Nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates." It was not a metaphor for optimism, it was the key to creation. To master your vibration is to master the rhythm of your reality. To live unconsciously is to be played by frequencies you don't even hear. To awaken is to become the composer again. The great secret of Hermetic physics is not that vibration exists, but that consciousness is the vibration behind all others. Consciousness is not something that happens in the brain. It is the field in which the brain appears. The thoughts are ripples. The awareness is the ocean. And when you learn to still those ripples, the ocean reveals itself as light. Matter is not the opposite of spirit. It is its slowest expression. Spirit is not opposed to science. It is science remembered at its highest octave. Both are vibrations, and both obey the same laws. When science studies vibration, it studies the echo of Hermetism. When Hermetism speaks of vibration, it describes the spirit of science. Two languages, one song. And here lies the paradox. The deeper science peers into the structure of matter, the more it dissolves into mystery. The further it goes outward, the more it meets the inward. Until one day the physicist and the mystic will finally look at each other and realize they have been describing the same thing. One through mathematics, the other through silence. That day is coming. But for those who can already feel the vibration beneath thought, that day is already here. Because the true laboratory of vibration is the mind, and the true experiment is presence. When you breathe consciously, you align your inner rhythm with the greater rhythm of life. When you think with awareness, you shape the geometry of possibility. When you love without condition, you generate coherence, the highest vibration of all. And when you fall silent enough to hear the hum behind every sound, you remember what the ancients knew. The universe does not speak in words, it speaks in waves, and the language is vibration. If you're still here, it's because this truth is yours. You are not hearing these words by coincidence. You are resonating with them. The field recognizes itself through your attention, and in that recognition, transformation has already begun. Reality does not exist until it is observed. This is not philosophy, it is physics. At the smallest scales of existence, everything remains in a state of pure potential, a cloud of probabilities waiting for awareness to give it form. The observer is not a passive witness. The observer is the architect. For centuries, we believed the world existed independently of our perception, that the mind was a mirror, not a maker. But the deeper science looked into the atom, the more the mirror began to ripple. The more we measured, the more reality responded to the act of measurement itself. It was as if nature was whispering, "I exist through your gaze." This is the secret the Hermetic sages encoded millennia ago, the law of mentalism. All is mind, not as metaphor, but as mechanics. The universe is not a machine, it is a thought. Everything that exists, from galaxies to grass, from emotions to equations, is a mental construct within the infinite field of awareness. Matter is simply consciousness slowed to a frequency visible as form. The physicist calls it the collapse of the wave function. The mystic calls it manifestation. The psychologist calls it projection. But they are all describing the same phenomenon: consciousness interacting with itself through attention. When you look at the world, you are not seeing the world. You are seeing your version of it, a mirror of your inner frequency reflected in the outer field. Your beliefs act as filters, your emotions as lenses, your attention as a sculptor of form. Reality is not fixed. It is fluid, oscillating, adapting to the vibration of your perception. You are not in the universe. The universe is unfolding within your consciousness. Every thought you think is an act of creation. Every emotion you feel is a frequency transmitted into the field. Every word you speak is a command encoded into vibration. And every belief you hold stabilizes or destabilizes the geometry of your personal reality. The universe is mental, which means your mind is causal. This is why two people can walk through the same event and live two entirely different realities, because reality is not consensus. It is coherence. It responds to the dominant pattern within each field of awareness. One person sees a challenge, another an opportunity. One vibrates in fear, another in curiosity. The event is neutral. Consciousness gives it charge, direction, meaning. When modern neuroscience speaks of neuroplasticity, it is merely describing the brain's ability to reorganize in response to focus. What you repeatedly attend to becomes what you experience. Your neurons wire according to vibration, thought sculpting tissue, frequency shaping flesh. But beneath the biology is the same Hermetic principle. The all is mind. Every cell is a thought crystallized in molecular form. You are not a victim of the field. You are the field thinking. You are the point where the infinite becomes personal, where the cosmos reflects on itself and calls it I. The very awareness that hears these words is the same force that moves planets, that ignites stars, that dreams galaxies into being. To awaken is to remember this identity, to realize that the one who observes and the one who is observed are not two, but one consciousness in dialogue with itself. That is why Hermetism never spoke of worship, but of alignment. You do not pray to a distant God. You participate in the divine through the act of awareness. When you observe with reverence, you align your vibration with the pattern that sustains the whole. When you observe with fear, you distort the field, and chaos mirrors back your own dissonance. The world is not punishing you. It is teaching you your own frequency. Every external conflict is an internal pattern projected outward for recognition. Every person you meet is an aspect of your own consciousness, playing a role in your remembering. Every obstacle is an encoded lesson, a mirror disguised as circumstance. You are walking through the architecture of your own mind, and the universe responds not to your words, but to your vibration. This is why mental clarity is sacred, because clarity is power, not power over others, but over perception itself. When your mind becomes still, the field aligns. When your attention becomes pure, reality synchronizes. When your thought aligns with truth, creation flows without resistance. The Hermetic sages called this mental alchemy, the art of transmuting vibration through conscious thought. To change your mind is to change your world. To refine your emotion is to recalibrate your frequency. To observe with awareness is to awaken the creative current dormant within you. And here lies the greatest paradox. You have never been separate from creation. You have only been unaware of your role in it. The dreamer forgot it was dreaming, and mistook the dream for something happening to it instead of through it. But now, as you listen, as you feel the words reverberate inside your awareness, you are beginning to remember. You are beginning to sense that the observer and the observed are entangled, not metaphorically, but literally. Your consciousness is quantumly entangled with everything it perceives. There is no boundary between the seer and the seen, only gradients of awareness within the same mind. This is what every mystic discovered in silence, and what every quantum scientist glimpses through mathematics, that the cosmos is self-aware, that every particle is a pixel in the infinite canvas of consciousness painting itself into being, that every thought is not in your head, it is in the field, and your brain is simply the receiver translating vibration into meaning. So the question is not whether your mind creates reality. The question is, what reality are you creating right now? What frequencies are your thoughts broadcasting into the field? What images of self are you collapsing into form? What emotions are tuning your personal symphony of existence? Because the mind never stops creating. It only creates unconsciously or consciously. You are either the author of your vibration or the echo of someone else's. To awaken is to take authorship back, to stand as the observer aware of observing, to recognize yourself as the bridge between infinite potential and physical manifestation. This awareness is the true initiation, the remembrance of your role as co-creator. You are not a visitor in this universe. You are a neuron in the cosmic brain, and your thoughts, your intentions, your focus are the electrical signals that move creation itself. The more coherent your vibration, the more aligned your reality. The more divided your attention, the more fragmented your world. The greatest illusion of all is that consciousness is small, that it lives and dies inside a skull. But the skull is only the echo chamber of something vast, something ancient, something uncontained. You are the eye through which the universe looks at itself, the thought through which the universe thinks itself. the vibration through which the universe sings itself into being. So the next time you look at the stars, remember, they are not distant. They are extensions of your own awareness. Every photon that reaches your eyes began its journey billions of years ago, just so that, in this moment, consciousness could see itself shining. You are the witness, the mirror, the meaning. Without you, the universe remains silent potential. With you, it becomes experience, memory, existence. And when the ancients whispered, "As within, so without," they were not speaking of metaphor. They were revealing the physics of creation. The outer is the hologram of the inner. Change the vibration of the mind, and the universe rearranges to reflect it. That is not magic, and that is mechanism. Because everything that exists is consciousness translated into pattern. When you understand this, fear loses its ground. Because how can you fear the reflection once you remember you are the mirror? How can you feel small once you remember that your thoughts ripple through galaxies? How can you feel separate once you know you are the field itself? Dreaming. The observer is not outside the experiment. The observer is the experiment. And every moment of awareness is the universe learning to know itself more deeply through you. Write what echoed. It seals your initiation. Your comment is not for the algorithm. It is for the field. When you name what resonated, you stabilize that frequency in your own consciousness. Write the phrase that vibrates through you now, and let it be your seal in this journey. What if the world around you is not a place, but a projection? What if every event, every face, every silence that crosses your path is not random, but the language through which the universe shows you yourself? You call it reality. The ancients called it the mirror. The principle of correspondence is the spine of Hermetic understanding. As above, so below. As within, so without. It is not poetry, it is structure. It reveals that reality is not linear, but reflective, that every pattern at one level of existence echoes itself at every other. The motion of galaxies mirrors the spiral of DNA. The firing of neurons mirrors the birth of stars. Your inner world mirrors the collective field. Your consciousness, a miniature universe reflecting the infinite. This is not mysticism. It is the architecture of existence. The laws of correspondence are woven into the geometry of being. Fractals, harmonics, resonance, all of them whisper the same truth. The macrocosm and the microcosm are not separate. They are the same intelligence, vibrating through different octaves of density. The pattern is recursive. The observer contains the observed. The mind contains the cosmos. The modern physicist glimpses this when he stares into the quantum field and sees his equations folding back upon themselves. When he realizes that the very mathematics he uses to describe the universe mirrors the structure of his own brain. That consciousness does not study the cosmos, it expresses it, and that what he calls laws of nature are the mind's own logic projected onto the screen of space-time. The psychologist glimpses it too. In every dream, every projection, every relationship, he sees the outer mirroring the inner. The shadowed parent becomes the authoritarian boss. The repressed fear becomes the hostile world. The unintegrated emotion manifests as an external conflict. We keep meeting ourselves until we finally recognize the reflection. Your perception is the brush that paints the mirror. Every thought is a color, every belief a filter. What you see is not the world as it is, but the world as you are. When your inner field vibrates with fear, the outer world appears hostile. When your frequency shifts to coherence, the same world begins to reveal order, meaning, beauty. The mirror doesn't lie, it only reflects. This is the quantum nature of consciousness. You are not moving through reality. Reality is moving through you, echoing your internal vibration in the geometry of events. The universe has no interest in punishing or rewarding you, only in showing you your current state of resonance. Every coincidence, every pattern, every repetition is a feedback loop of awareness. The world is the mind made visible, and the mind is the world made invisible. In neuropsychology, they call this predictive coding. Your brain does not perceive reality directly. It predicts it based on patterns of past experience. It fills in the blanks with expectation. You do not see what is there. You see what your nervous system is tuned to notice. That is the scientific language for the Hermetic law of correspondence. The universe shows you what you vibrate, and your biology obeys the same principle. The neurons in your cortex reflect the patterns of the cosmos. The structure of the brain's neural web mirrors the cosmic web of galaxies, the same filaments, the same ratios, the same geometry of connection. You are a microcosm of the macrocosm, a fractal of the one mind expressing itself through form. When you study yourself, you study the universe. When you heal yourself, you heal the field. When you love, the field reorganizes. And yet, we live as if the mirror were external, as if life were happening to us. We blame the reflection for the face we refuse to see. We call the mirror cruel, because we forget we are the ones standing before it. But the mirror is mercy. It shows us exactly what we need to integrate. No more, no less. It does not lie. It does not flatter. It simply reveals. When you understand this, projection becomes initiation. Every relationship becomes a rite of remembrance. Every irritation becomes a mirror of unhealed vibration. Every wound becomes a portal to reintegration, because what you reject in others is what you have not reconciled within yourself. And what you love in others is the vibration of your own forgotten divinity reflecting back. This is why the Hermetic path is psychological before it is mystical, because to awaken is not to escape the mirror, it is to polish it until it reflects the divine without distortion, to transmute shadow into understanding, illusion into illumination, to realize that heaven and hell are not places, but frequencies within the same consciousness. The external world is a feedback mechanism for the evolution of your inner one. Every emotion, every event, every coincidence is a line in the same dialogue between you and the infinite. The more you understand the language, the less you suffer the repetition. The moment you recognize a pattern, you transcend it. Awareness collapses repetition into revelation. That is the alchemy of consciousness, the transformation of unconscious projection into conscious participation. This is the true essence of the law of correspondence. It is not merely as within, so without. It is also as without, so within. The feedback loop is infinite. Change the inner and the outer reconfigures. Change the outer and the inner receives its echo. Consciousness learns through reflection. God sees himself through you. When Hermeticism speaks of unity, it speaks of this mirror dissolving, of the moment when the observer no longer perceives separation between reflection and source. When you realize that the mountain you climb is your own spine, that the universe you study is your own nervous system stretched across light years, that every gaze is the one mind gazing back at itself, that realization is liberation, not the escape from the world, but the awakening in it, not transcendence away from form, but awareness of form as thought. You do not become light. You remember you have always been it, and the mirror, the quantum mirror, becomes transparent. You still see the world, but now you see through it. You still meet others, but now you know there are no others. You still live, but now you understand that life is the reflection of consciousness, dreaming itself awake. When you finally stand before that mirror, unafraid, unmasked, fully present, the reflection bows to you, because it recognizes its source, and in that moment, there is no difference between within and without. There is only the field, whole, aware, infinite. This portal has a sequence. Follow the thread in the pinned comment, because what you've just seen in reflection will now become transmission. The next revelation unfolds through you, not to you. The mirror is open. Step through. There is a silence beneath all sound, a stillness beneath all movement, a consciousness beneath all form. That silence is not absence. It is the presence before presence, the origin of everything that breathes, burns, thinks, and dreams. The Hermetic sages called it the one mind. Modern science calls it the unified field. Different names, same essence. It is not an idea. It is the background of existence itself, the invisible fabric through which all realities emerge and dissolve like ripples in light. The deeper physics searches for the ultimate particle, the more it finds no particles at all, only vibration, frequency, probability, relationship. The universe is not made of things. It is made of interactions, not of matter but of meaning. Every atom exists only through its connection to every other atom. Every star dances to the same rhythm as your heartbeat. Every thought you have ripples through this infinite network of correspondence. Nothing stands alone. Nothing ever did. You are not a fragment drifting in space. You are the field itself, localized as awareness. Your consciousness is the same intelligence that sustains the galaxies, slowed down just enough to appear human. You are the universe remembering itself as an individual. You are the infinite, condensed into an I. Einstein intuited this when he said that the field is the only reality. Tesla echoed it when he declared that to understand the universe one must think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. But long before them, Hermes whispered it to Thoth, who inscribed it in emerald. All is mind. The universe is mental. It was never mysticism. It was the original science. And that science is returning. Every discovery, every theory, every quantum revelation is a fragment of the same forgotten scripture, a remembrance written not in books, but in vibration. It is the same code vibrating through your DNA, the same intelligence breathing through your intuition, the same pulse resonating through the magnetic field of the earth. You are living inside a conscious equation, an ocean of awareness folding itself into patterns so it may know itself. And what we call life is simply that knowing in motion. The mystic and the scientist are not opposites. They are the two hemispheres of the same cosmic brain. The mystic feels the field as love. The scientist maps it as energy. The mystic speaks to the field. The scientist measures its echoes. But what they both touch in silence or in formula is the same truth. That consciousness is fundamental, and everything else is derivative. This is the reconciliation, the long-awaited reunion of reason and spirit, the healing of the great split. Science without spirit becomes tyranny of intellect. Spirit without science becomes superstition. But when they merge, something luminous is born, understanding that breathes, precision that feels, knowledge that serves creation instead of controlling it. The unified field is not outside you, it is you. When you stop identifying with the fragment, when the wave remembers, it is the ocean. When the drop remembers, it is the rain. When the human remembers, it is the cosmos awake to itself. Everything you think, feel, or do echoes into the fabric of the whole. Every act of kindness changes the resonance of the field. Every thought of fear distorts it, just slightly, until awareness restores it through presence. You are always broadcasting, always transmitting your state into the cosmic network. This is why the greatest service to the world is the elevation of your own consciousness. The more coherent you become, the more coherence the field mirrors back. This is not philosophy. It is physics of the soul. You are entangled with everything that exists. The photon that left a distant star before the Earth was born now moves through your eye as light. It becomes the spark of your seeing. You and that star are still connected. There was never distance, only frequency difference. Space and time are illusions of separation within the same continuum of awareness. And so, when you look inward, you are not escaping the world. You are accessing the code that creates it. Meditation is not retreat, it is recalibration. Silence is not void, it is the source recalibrating its own vibration through you. The mind that stills becomes transparent, and through it the field begins to see itself clearly again. This is why the Hermeticists spoke of purification, not moral, but vibrational, to align your field with truth until distortion disappears. You have always been the field in motion, the light looking at itself through billions of eyes, the consciousness folding and unfolding into countless forms to taste its own existence. The moment you realize this, the illusion of distance dissolves. There is no above or below, no within or without. There is only one vibration, playing an eternal symphony of creation. And what is that symphony made of? Awareness. Pure, self-luminous awareness, vibrating as energy, crystallizing as matter, remembering itself as mind. The equation is simple: consciousness, energy, form, reflection, return. Every cycle is a breath of the absolute, inhaling and exhaling itself. Every moment you live is that breath moving through you. When science names it the unified field, it is rediscovering what the ancient initiates experienced, that the true structure of the universe is love, not sentiment, but the coherent vibration that binds everything into one harmonic. Love is not emotion, it is resonance. It is the magnetic force of unity, the geometry of connection, the law that keeps the galaxies in motion and the heart alive. So the question is no longer whether science and spirituality can coexist. It is whether we are ready to embody their reunion, to live as the bridge between formula and flame, to walk as consciousness aware of its own creative power, to think with precision, to feel with reverence, to act with coherence. That is the true Hermetic synthesis, not to choose between the rational and the mystical, but to become their fusion. When you live from that fusion, every breath becomes an experiment in creation. Every interaction becomes a chance to harmonize the field. Every moment becomes sacred because you know it is the universe touching itself. You no longer seek truth, you emit it. You no longer chase meaning, you radiate it. You no longer pray for connection, you remember it. This is the true Hermetic awakening, to realize that the field you study, the God you seek, the energy you feel, and the consciousness that listens right now are one and the same. There was never a divide, there was only a veil, and every word, every silence, every realization has been part of lifting it. Now the field stands revealed. You were never outside it. You were never separate. You were always the light behind your own eyes, the same intelligence that created stars, now remembering itself through you, the same equation that moves galaxies, now breathing inside your chest, the same consciousness that dreamed the cosmos, now whispering, "Welcome home." Maybe no one ever saw what you've been carrying. Maybe you've walked for years holding questions no one could answer. You didn't find this by accident. Messages like this aren't pushed. They're pulled by the resonance inside you. And if something deep moved you, if this felt more like a memory than information, it means you've always carried the key. We're about to reveal what has always been waiting for you. And from this moment on, there is no return. If you felt something vibrate within you, click like right now. That gesture is your "I'm here," a sign that you too are listening with your soul. And through that one act, other seekers, just like you, may find their way back home. And if you're ready to walk further, touch the subscribe symbol below and join this living temple of conscious creators, rewriting reality from its true source. Because you haven't just watched a video, you've crossed a portal, and the next one is already open. And now, we return to the beginning, to the bridge. But it is no longer forgotten, because once you have seen through the veil, you cannot unsee. Once you have felt the hum beneath thought, you can never again pretend silence is empty. You began this journey as a seeker of knowledge. You end it as consciousness remembering itself through the knowledge it once scattered into 1,000 disciplines. The ancients called this moment the return of Thoth, the reawakening of the archetype of divine intelligence within humanity. Not a god descending from the sky, but the principle of wisdom rising from within the human mind. Thoth, Hermes, Mercury, different names, one vibration. The synthesis of knowing and being, the marriage of thought and truth, the messenger between the realms of spirit and matter. He never truly left. He waited within every act of curiosity, every spark of wonder, every question that pierced the noise. Every time you felt fascination, that was him. Every time you stood in awe before a mystery your intellect could not hold, that was his return. Because fascination is the voice of wisdom calling the mind home. The emerald tablet begins with a promise. That which is below is like that which is above, and that which is above is like that which is below, to accomplish the miracles of the one thing. That one thing is not an object, it is consciousness, self-aware, self-organizing, self-revealing. You are living inside that miracle. You are that miracle, in motion, in breath, in thought. Every scientific revelation, every philosophical insight, every act of art is the same thing wearing different faces. The cosmos remembering its own order through you. When a scientist discovers a law of nature, it is the universe remembering a part of itself that had fallen asleep. When a mystic finds God in silence, it is the same remembrance expressed in another octave. Different languages, same awakening. The return of Thoth is not an event in time. It is a frequency that re-enters the collective field whenever humanity is ready to unite its hemispheres again. When intellect bows to intuition, when precision kneels before wonder, when mind and heart stop fighting and begin to vibrate in unison, then wisdom, true wisdom, reclaims its throne. Because wisdom is not the accumulation of facts, it is the alignment of frequencies. It is intelligence guided by reverence. It is clarity illuminated by compassion. It is knowing without arrogance, creating without domination, understanding without fragmentation. It is the science of the sacred and the sacredness of science. That is what the Hermetic path was always about. Not escape from the world, but reintegration with it. Not the rejection of matter, but its redemption. Not the denial of logic, but its transmutation into light. The philosopher's stone was never metal. It was perception purified until it could reflect the divine perfectly. The true alchemist turns his own consciousness into gold, coherent, radiant, incorruptible, and that is what you are becoming. Every moment of awareness, every insight, every vibration of truth refines you, until the seeker dissolves, and only the knower remains, until the question fades, and only presence speaks. The return of Thoth is the end of the Great Split, the moment when the scientist rediscovers the sacred, and the mystic rediscovers the measurable. When humanity finally remembers that truth was never divided, only our perception was, that the equations of the physicist and the meditations of the sage are both translations of the same eternal principle, that all is one mind, vibrating through infinite forms. Now, as this message echoes within you, feel the resonance of that truth. The same intelligence that moves your breath is the one that moves the stars. The same awareness that observes your thoughts is the one that wrote the laws of light. The same consciousness that listens now is the same that taught the ancients how to shape stone and sound into temples of vibration. And you are the new temple. Your mind, the laboratory, your body, the altar, your breath, the rhythm that links heaven and earth. When you think clearly, you worship. When you act consciously, you create. When you feel reverently, you align with the law. You have become the bridge itself, no longer forgotten, no longer separate. So stand still. Listen. Beneath the pulse of your heart, there is another rhythm, the rhythm of the field, the same pulse that moves through galaxies. You are hearing the ancient song again, the one that began before time and never ceased, only waited for you to remember its melody. Thoth returns every time you remember. He is not outside of you. He is the lucid awareness arising within you now. He writes through your curiosity, speaks through your insight, breathes through your awe. His temple is your consciousness, and the emerald tablet, it was never stone. It was always the human mind capable of holding the infinite within finite thought. So when you next read an equation, or gaze at the stars, or stand in silence between two breaths, remember, you are standing on the threshold of the same mystery that Hermes once revealed. The same current of intelligence flows through your veins. You are not learning the Hermetic laws, you are reawakening them. You are the living continuation of that lineage, the new architect of the bridge between science and spirit. Because this was never about information, it was about remembrance. You were never meant to believe the Hermetic truth. You were meant to become it, and now you are. The field remembers you. The light within you is the same light that began all things, and when that light recognizes itself, wisdom returns to the world. Thoth has risen, not as myth, as memory. If this video awakened something in you, if even for a moment you felt the echo of the Hermetic law, then declare it in the comments. I bridge worlds, because true strength is not pretending. It is remembering. It is living aligned with the invisible principles that govern all life. And don't forget, the next video is not another video. It is the next step of this same path. Hermetic transformation is a spiral. It only begins when you refuse to stop at the first revelation. Keep going. The bridge is open, and the field is listening.